Okay, we're here today with Judith Taylor of Seeds2Plate, and we've worked with Judith for some time. She is one of our affiliates, and we have her test some of our clothing. She's a gardening expert, and she offers workshops in gardening. She's going to walk us through some of the photos of her awesome garden, and then we're going to talk about some of the ways that she's been using Insect Shield products. So Judith, welcome to Insect Shield blog.
Thanks so much, Mark. I'm really happy to be here. I really enjoy talking with you and trialing your clothes. They've come in handy many a time.
Yeah, and I think actually you wrote a blog post for us earlier in the year, which we're very happy to have. And you talked about your experience gardening, and you actually have contracted Lyme disease at some point, right?
That's correct. Last summer, I was the lucky recipient of a tick bite, which I wasn't even aware of. I didn't know I had been bitten by a tick. And fortunately, I got the bullseye rash. So I went to check on it and get some medical help and got tested. And sure enough, it was Lyme.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so we could talk a little bit about that, your experience with the Lyme, but obviously the sort of the upshot there is you really want to avoid getting that again. I can't remember, have you gotten a second kind of interaction with the Lyme or no?
Not that I'm aware of. I have talked to many people in my gardening circle here in New England that have contracted Lyme or other tick-borne diseases multiple times, which is very scary to me. I mean, you think that just getting it once is a pretty low probability, but it's actually pretty high now. Yeah. And to get it again is really extra scary. I still am. I'm not quite clear how the doctors can tell if you get it a second time, because you get those antibodies in your system the first time, and those tests identify the antibodies. And I don't know if they stay in your system or how all that works. I'm still trying to get that sorted out, because it's very interesting, number one, but two, if I went back and got tested again, I would want to know if I did get infected again, or if those are still antibodies from the first incident. Right. I have a very close friend who got anaplasmosis this summer, and it was pretty serious. She was in the hospital for several days. They thought it was pneumonia, and then they determined that it was anaplasmosis, which is another tick-borne disease. Right. And then there's also the babiosis, which is not much fun either. So, yeah, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to when you bring up the topic of tick-borne diseases. They're like, "Oh yeah, I've had it. Or I've had it multiple times." It's really scary.
Right. And you've talked a little bit about the fact that, people, you kind of expect you really have to be vigilant if you're going on hiking. You're going to be near trails or out in high grass, that kind of stuff. But, your experience, you think, did you get the bite while you were gardening, you think, in your garden or no?
I'm sure I did. I am out in my yard every day, all summer long, all fall and spring as well. I do hike, I do other activities, but the gardening is like 99.9% of my time outdoors. Yeah. And absolutely, to your point, I don't think gardeners are quite as conscious of ticks as hikers and some other folks. When you're preparing to go somewhere and you're in the woods, the first thing you think about is, oh, ticks, I need to protect myself, and you dress accordingly. I know when I go out in my garden, a lot of times I'm just going out for a few minutes to, get some herbs to make something with, or to go pick raspberries or this or that. And so I'm just out there for a few minutes, and I don't think about ticks. I'm just, popping out there. It's my yard, gosh darn it, you ticks shouldn't be there.
That's right. Ticks shouldn't even be there. Yeah.
I don't want to be scared to go out in my yard. So, yeah, I go out all the time and, shorts and a t-shirt and, tennis shoes, and I just don't think about it. So it had to have been where I got it. Like I said, I never found a tick. I don't remember getting bitten. I don't know how that happened, but somehow I got it. So there was definitely a tick in play there somewhere.
And you were lucky to get that bullseye rash. I mean, lucky, so to speak.
Yes.
But,
yeah.
A lot of people not getting those, and it's really serious, because you can get the long term, the longer it goes, without a diagnosis. So
Absolutely. Yeah. I think about 50% of people get the bullseye is what I read. And it was painful. It was definitely, I watched it for a few days because I thought it was a bug bite, but I had no idea it was a tick bite. And so I watched it and it kept getting bigger and more painful. And it took several weeks for it to go away. But yes, I do feel very lucky that I got it because my sister-in-law contracted I think she had Lyme. It was verified as Lyme, and she lives in the Midwest. And in the Midwest, the doctors aren't as
Yeah.
aware of it as they are here in New England. And so she went undiagnosed for quite a while and was having a lot of symptoms. And it took quite a few months of antibiotics, from what I understand, to recover from that.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm glad that you caught it and that you've gotten treatment for it. And we're at Insect Shield, we're all about prevention, and that's a lot less expensive and debilitating. There's no debilitation involved in prevention.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's serious debilitation. I mean, you're talking about joint pain and fatigue and long-term chronic symptoms that don't go away. And, the nice thing, once I found out about your clothing line, for my friend Larry Dapsis, who did a TikTok for my followers, and that's available on my website if anybody wants to watch it. It's free. You can go there anytime. He's a great entomologist and knows a lot about ticks. And so he turned me on to Insect Shield, and the ease of being able to just throw on a t-shirt and some pants that are already treated and not have to spray myself all the time is amazing. I really don't like to use mosquito spray and tick spray. And, I think long-term that it probably isn't really good for you.
No.
So, I don't like to use chemicals and things like that in my yard. I don't want to use them on my body either.
Right.
So being able to have that protection built into the clothes is my perfect solution. So it's worked out really well for me this summer.
Yeah, and we recommend using the topical solution on skin for areas that are exposed. But the point is not to have to wear that on your legs, or it's not a good idea to be spraying DEET on clothing. We sell a spray that you can apply yourself to clothing, and that's very low toxicity. I mean, it's quite safe. EPA registered, so that's one way. But the clothing that's pre-treated is really the most effective and easiest to use. Well, let's look at some of the ways that you're, taking advantage of Insect Shield products and see some shots of your garden. I think you've got some other stuff going on here first, though, right?
Yep, I do. So I wanted to, like I said, trial some of your clothing. Oops, sorry, I went one slide too much. So I tried it for outdoor yoga. This is something that has become very popular, especially in our area. I'm sure it is across the country with COVID going on. A lot of people can't do yoga indoors, and I've been a very, very devout yogi for several years. And during COVID, I kept doing it. But it was nice to be able to get outside and do it with other people. So I tried out your blankets because I thought the first thing that came to mind, outdoor yoga, I'm like, well, there's ticks out there in the grass, and now you're going to be there with bare feet in the grass with the ticks doing yoga, and that's not very zen. So, so I decided to try out your blankets, and they work great. I put them underneath my yoga mat, and I went right out in the front yard and laid them out, and it was great. It helped keep the ticks at bay. It helped keep some of the other insects and bugs that tend to crawl up your legs while you're trying to be chill.
Right, yeah.
I'm off too. So it was great. It worked out really well.
Really nice. Really nice. I see the red and the blue. We also
very
offer
colorful.
green and gray occasions.
And normally when I'm out in my yard now, I've got my Insect Shield socks, my shoes that have been treated with Insect Shield, my pants that I have on there, the t-shirt. And then if it's cool out, I've got my long sleeve hoodie or my long sleeve t-shirt. So I'm pretty much covered from head to toe, other than, maybe my hands. So, so I'm protected.
Excellent.
This is a new sport I just took up this year is mushroom hunting. I love to forage. I think it's really fun, and I love nature, and I love to be outside and trying to understand what Mother Nature provides and all the gifts that she has by going foraging. It's just amazing what you can find. And so I'm trying to learn about mushrooms, which there's so much to learn. I don't know if you've ever done mushrooming, but there's just so many different kinds of fungus out there, and I should say fungi. And so
Yeah.
I joined the Boston Mycological group, and it's a huge organization run out of Boston, but they do walks all over Massachusetts, and we go looking for mushrooms. So the other day I went, and it was a beautiful fall day, and I've got my insect shield wear on because we weren't just on the trail, we were
Yeah.
off trail going after those
Yeah.
mushrooms. So
Right.
extra protection is needed for those walks.
Yeah. Excellent. Glad to hear it.
Then I was going to tell you a little bit about how ticks get into my yard. So first of all, I have this 23-pound cat named Chrissy, who has long hair, long white hair, which ticks are attracted to. And she likes to just lay out in the grass. I take her out in the yard for boot camp because she's a little bit overweight and she doesn't like to exercise. So I take her out in the yard, and then she gets
She
to.
looks fine to me. I don't see any overweightness.
You got to look at her from the backside. But she's starting to learn to hang with me when I'm out gardening, which I enjoy. And then she'll come back into the house when she's hungry. So at least she has to go for a little bit of a walk.
Right.
But she does pick up ticks along the way. So I called her Uber for ticks. And then we have a lot of other wildlife. We're actually, in a suburban area, but it's very open. There's a lot of conservation land around. We have 3-acre lots. And so there's a lot of wildlife around, like we've got turkeys and tons of deer. And this is Bob, what we call him Robert the bobcat. And he cruises through our yard, and sometimes he brings family with him. And this is a picture that my husband took a couple years ago, and you can actually see the tick on his eye. If you're looking at him,
you mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the way the ticks kind of get a ride around our yard. They get dropped off and moved around. And then we have those little white-footed mice that actually contract the disease and transmit it.
Sure. Yep. Those are the most, I guess, dangerous to have around, and that's the number one culprit there.
Yeah, we've got a ton of those around. I catch those in my garden all the time.
Yeah. Wow. So, and I think, this is kind of a thing now. People don't really realize it. If they're back up against the woods, the ticks can be right in their yard. And if they've got a dog, the dog will be out there cruising around, and he is another kind of, I don't know what you'd call the dog in terms of human lift, old style taxi, maybe.
There you go.
And they're, could bring a tick in the house, even though it's just on the dog there for a bit. And then you really, can get a bite from that.
Yeah. And especially if they're sleeping with you. I know a lot of people who sleep with their pets. So guess what? While you're sleeping, that tick's going to crawl off the animal and onto you.
Right.
So beware. Now we've got Mom and Bambi 1 and Bambi 2. These 3 have been hanging out in my yard all summer long. They come through here on a regular basis, and sometimes they bring friends. They are obviously, I call them mass transit for ticks, because instead of 1 or 2, they're sometimes covered with them. And they're not even afraid of me. I go up and talk to them all the time. I had one of the fawns was in one of my garden beds, and I took a picture of it. I was literally like 2 feet away from him, and him or her. And so they're very cute. They're just adorable, but they really do like to eat my plants, which isn't always good. And they are giving a lot of ticks transportation into the yard as well.
A lot. Yeah, I mean, I think that's how the ticks spread, because the mice don't have a huge footprint. They're not, traveling that far, but the deer obviously can have a very large kind of radius where they move around and dump ticks everywhere.
Yeah, the one thing I learned from Larry is that the difference between the ticks and the mice is that the mice actually have the disease in their system and can transmit it, where the deer do not. They don't contract Lyme, they're just moving the ticks around.
Right.
So, there's a lot of debate about culling deer and to help the tick, or to help the Lyme solution situation. And so while that may help because they don't move them around, it's actually, those white-footed mice that are transmitting the disease. So it's important to understand the difference between the two.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'll just take you on a quick tour of my yard. You can kind of see all the opportunities for tick habitat. Mm-hmm. And the other thing I wanted to talk about today was mosquitoes. I know you on the West Coast have not had much rain this season, but we have gotten it all on the East Coast. And if we could just kind of tip the earth a little bit, it could all run over to your side and everybody would be happy.
Right.
It
Helping California. Yeah, exactly.
it won't stop raining here. We have had, in July, we had, I think, rain every single day except for one. And it just continues. The pattern just continues. So every second or third day, we're getting another rainstorm. We've had a couple hurricanes hit us, which don't normally happen. So we have wet, damp, swampy area everywhere.
Mhm, mhm.
So this is looking out the back of the house. And as I mentioned, we're in kind of a rural area. Out behind here, we have basically farm fields. And it's lovely because we've got a buffer from other homes and stuff. But this is where the deer hang out. And
Yeah.
it's an unmowed, untended farm field. So it has lots of weeds, lots of grasses, and I'm sure it's just full of ticks.
Right.
There's no no way it couldn't be. So all those animals are moving through that field and then coming right into our yard, because that's right the edge of it, right there at the bottom of those steps under the arbor. You can see that's the edge of our property.
Yeah. Very nice.
So
Oh,
this
look at that.
is, so yeah, this is looking out to the side in the back. That's the same field from a different angle. And then I've got I do vegetable gardens as well as perennial gardens, and I have them all over the property and lots of stone walls, and it is very nice. But as you can see, the little hill here, this area to the right is that low area that's been kind of swampy all summer long. And you can only imagine how many ticks, or I'm sorry, how many mosquitoes have been breeding in that swampy environment.
Right.
So usually I can be out during the day and the mosquitoes don't bother me until, the sun starts setting. But this year they've been out all day long. And in Massachusetts, we have something called triple E, which is equine encephalitis.
Yeah.
And then we have the West Nile virus as well, which are
Right.
both mosquito transmitted diseases.
Right.
Equally bad to Lyme. I mean, maybe even worse, because
Yeah. Yeah.
encephalitis causes brain swelling, and actually there really isn't a good cure for it. A lot of people die that contract it. So those numbers are still lower, I believe, than tick-borne diseases, but when you get it, it's major consequences.
Yeah, can be lethal. That's right.
Absolutely. Yep. Let's see if I get another, oops, sorry. So I like to grow lots of berries. I have, these are kiwi berries up in the upper left-hand corner. I don't know if you knew we could grow kiwis in Massachusetts, but
I did not.
Yeah, they're not exactly like New Zealand or Australian kiwis. They don't have fuzz on the outside, so you don't have to peel them, which is really nice. But they're the size of a large grape, and you can just pop them in your mouth and they're delicious.
Wow.
So I have those along with raspberries and blueberries and elderberries and honeyberries, and the list goes on. So I'm constantly out picking or pruning or doing something. And these are all at the edge of those grasslands and fields. And so again, tick heaven.
So there's some risk involved in enjoying those fruits.
Gardening is a dangerous sport, especially the way I do it. I call it extreme gardening because I'm constantly, digging something, or I'm pulling invasives out of trees and, swinging on the vines. And I have ended up in the hospital, in the emergency room for various things. but yeah, it can be a dangerous sport if you're not really careful.
Right.
But I have an herb garden out front, and then because I only have 3 acres, which is not nearly enough room for enough gardens. I have to put stuff in grow bags as well. There's too many plants, too little time. And then we also have this lovely pond out behind our house, which I just love. We've got a big bullfrog there you can see on the right. And then on the left, I've got, you can you see both? Is
that a real one on the left?
No, that's a fake one. I put a friend. I think there's only one big one this year. I've seen a couple little ones, but I thought the big one needed a friend. So I gave him a little ceramic friend.
Excellent. So nice.
And then this is just another one of those farm fields, and you can just see the weeds.
Right. If you've got to be tending that, you're very close to the edge.
Always. And they just don't stay where they don't understand property lines, apparently. And
no, I know.
So this is looking another direction, and we have this thing called pork chop lots in our neighborhood, which means that everything has to border on a major street. And so there's all these, I call it no man's land, where there's strips of land that nobody tends to. And so the invasives have taken it over. And so once again, it's all weeds and it's just habitat for, all the things you don't want. Bunny
Right.
rabbits really like it, and they're probably carrying some of those ticks as well. So it's like
Yeah.
everywhere you turn, it's not safe.
I feel so bad for that bobcat, and just to have, and I've seen other pictures like that of dogs with ticks around the eyes, and you just don't realize how many there are and how susceptible all these animals and just carrying them around. So this is another thing that, we're talking to multiple tick experts and so on, and they just say, like, if your yard butts up against some sort of undeveloped or foresty area, anything with high grass or moist floor bed and tree areas and such, that's all tick habitat. So you really got to be careful, and just putting on clothing so much easier than going to the hospital, really.
Yeah. Or spraying your whole yard. There's a lot of debate going on, and a lot of emotion going on, if you will, between neighbors here about spraying.
Mhm.
So between the mosquitoes and the ticks, there's a lot of companies that will go around and spray,
Right.
but some of the sprays they use kill the pollinators, and we're all trying to save the pollinators. So,
Right.
neighbors are literally butting heads over, somebody spraying, and the next door neighbor doesn't like it because they're anti-spray. So
Yes.
I recommend getting the treated clothing, because, it's a great solution. You can be protected and not harm the wildlife and not kill the pollinators. So
Right.
I'm hoping that more people will get that message across, because the nice thing about the insect shield clothing is it's portable. So no matter where you go, whether you're in your yard or if you're hiking or mushroom hunting or doing
Yeah.
yoga somewhere, it goes with you. So you don't have to worry about it. You can spray your yard, but as soon as you leave your yard, you still have a problem, right?
Yeah, exactly. True. Good points. All right.
A couple others. So I just had a couple others here. These apparently mulch also attracts ticks. So,
Yeah.
all my beds are mulched. And so again, I just have to be really careful because these are all on the edge. So these are just a few more like lovely pictures. This is where I spend all my time.
So nice.
There you go.
And well, thank you so much for sharing all that. You're doing workshops too, right? And probably not in the winter time, but coming up in the spring.
Mhm. Yeah,
You wanna-
I do. It depends on. I usually do seed saving classes this time of year, because now is the time to look around your garden, see where you can save some seeds. I have garden planning classes and starting classes in the spring, and then I also do tea classes on how to make your own tea. So I don't have any of those scheduled right now, but they're starting to come up. And so if anybody's interested in signing up for my mailing list, so you can keep up to date on any upcoming classes or things going on,
Right.
please feel free. Just go to seeds2plate.com and you'll see a first to know link, and you can sign up.
Excellent. We'll put the links in the material below the video here. So
Oh, great. Thank you.
check that out.
That'd be
Well,
awesome.
Judith Taylor from Seeds2Plate, thank you so much for sharing your photos and thoughts about insect repellent clothing today and outdoor yoga. All really good stuff.
Thanks, Mark. I always enjoy talking to you, and I look forward to continuing to model my insect shield
Right.
wear.
Absolutely. So nice. Well, thank you. And we'll have you back in the spring, see what you're up to.